Right. Hi. Welcome to the Tangent Christian Podcast. Today I've got the privilege of interviewing Pastor Jordan Smith, the past and present principal of Equippers College in New Zealand. Jordan, thank you for joining us. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Lovely to see you again and good to be here.
So, in the past, I've sometimes heard you speak on more than one occasion, I think, about the relationship or interchange, perhaps overlap between heaven and earth. So, do you want to briefly give us an overview of that?
Yeah. I think it's there's so many different ideas about heaven, and heaven and earth and how these two sort of how it gets your realms, places, spheres of influence. How do they interact? And so I think it is a real interesting space to think about. And um, I think probably in the current environment, there's a real openness to the idea that perhaps not everything is encapsulated in the material realities, but there's the immaterial reality being really important too. And I've got no understanding of sort of physics or anything like that, but even at that, high level physics, there's discussions in that space about how immaterial things might be affecting matter. Like even there's some conversation about consciousness affecting the way matter behaves. So obviously it's above my pay grade academically, but it really, for us as Christians, I think it's really important to keep remembering that the here and now, the earth, is influenced by the heavens, this other invisible realm. And that for us as humans, there's an invisible reality to being a human that's perhaps connects with heaven. And then there's a physical reality of being a human. And so humans then, like Adam and Eve the first story of creation, can operate like a bit of a bridge between heaven and earth. Yeah.
Cool. And do you think that sort of relates to you talk about the Adam and Eve at the beginning of creation, and so we see in the Bible a little bit about there's a creation being renewed. Do you think that the relationship between heaven and earth also relates to the relationship between old and new creation?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can see, and I'm sure it's, an intentional function of the revelation in scripture is that creation, that creation story we have in Genesis 1, 2, 3, that sort of space is sort of retold in some way in John's revelation, and the new heavens and a new earth. And like the garden and then the city, and this idea of this developed idea of a new reality. So I think that humans, amazingly, God chooses to use us, or to invites us to be part of the whole process of not just his creative work, but also his redemptive work, and we see it in the story of Christ, God incarnate in man, that the partnership between heaven and earth is still sort of operates or connects around humanity. And I think it's a really elevating thought, in terms of our human lives. There's something really important about our everyday life. It's something that connects with the heavens in a really powerful way, even though it's still very ordinary, like the ordinary things of relationships and work and family life. They can feel real ordinary, but they also are miraculous in such a powerful, powerful way. And it's because they're part of God. They can be part of God's redemptive story. So I think I think for me, it's an elevating thought or uplifting thought to think that, my everyday sort of life, the conversations I have with my friends can be part of either God's restoration of all things, or, equally so, I guess we can be part of the destruction of God's plan. I guess that's the challenge in terms of our discipleship journey.
Yeah, and I suppose us, yeah, especially for us as Christians, I suppose would you say that to some degree we're all called to that as humans, but us as Christians, if we're aware of that, then we're called to be especially essential in that relationship between heaven and earth?
Yeah, I think that's a yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, I think we're you know we're not just yeah as a Christian when you begin a journey following Jesus, a discipleship journey, we are part of what God is redeeming, and we're also part of how He is redeeming the world. And I think yeah, there's a bit of a maybe it's is paradox the right word? Maybe it's a paradox. Maybe it's a bit of a there's two different sides to the coin really that
Mm.
we are Jesus redeems us like individually. He actually cares about us individually, but he's also redeeming all things, which is why he's redeeming us because we're part of the all things that of that created space that God is redeeming. So yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
an interesting sort of mix.
Two of my favorite authors, Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, both talk about the the interplay between the spiritual and the physical. And I think it was also reminded, especially with C.S. Lewis's book, the the Great Divorce. He talks about even the ordinary things being some of the ordinary things we consider most ordinary being the most important in heaven.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually yeah, a real ancient Christian thought that the most ordinary things are the most important. So yeah, so some ancient Christians would talk about just laughing and joking with your in your family is more important worship than the work of the theologian because because the work of the theologian is contingent, whereas just you laughing with your friends exists for its own purpose. It's a fully real thing, whereas the theologian writing in his study is only exists for some other purpose. If no one reads it or whatever, and yeah, I just think that's again a powerful thought that that the ordinariness, yeah, ordinary doesn't mean valueless, does it? Yeah, so I think there's something really, yeah, really powerful in there. That definitely worth thinking more about.
Cool. Thank you for taking time to share these thoughts with us. Um, yeah, hopefully we might have time to see you again on another episode. Anyway, thank you, and thank you everyone for watching as well. God bless.
Thanks.